Hey, horror fans, welcome back to Jay vs. Horror and another episode of 90s Thriller Rewind. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite films from that era, 1992's Raising Cain, from director Brian De Palma. The film stars the great John Lithgow in five phenomenal performances here. And of course, we get Lolita Davidovich and Stephen Bauer, Francis Sternhagen, and Greg Henry. The film opens with John Lithgow playing Dr. Carter Nix, a well respected child psychiatrist who is having a conversation with a friend after both of them had their children at the local playground. Now they're driving back to their neighborhood, and Lithgow is talking about experiments in personality disorder and things like this. And then out of nowhere, he kind of blows something in his friend's face. She has to pull over to the side of the road, and then he chloroforms her. At this point, the film has already gone off the rails, kind of. It's a fun movie, and we instantly see that John Lithgow has a multiple personality disorder. In fact, he has five separate personalities. But we figured this out initially when CAIN shows up, and CAIN is the criminal personality, the one who does all the dirty work. And so, as we follow the story, we see that Carter is abducting children and killing off the mothers, nannies, whoever the caregivers are. And he is providing these children to an experiment. Now, more fun ensues as we have to wonder which personalities are actually Carter and which could be actual people. And so we follow the story along, and it's very diluted. And De Palma does some fun stuff here because this movie is very much an homage to the great thrillers of the 40s and 50s and even the 60s. But it's also a parody of those films because the movie is highly over stylized. It feels like Vertigo at times. You get these weird shots that don't make a lot of sense. And some of the characters have dreams, and you have to wonder from one minute to next if you're following reality or you're following a dream state. And then also, of course, we have this phenomenal performance here from John Lithgow where he plays these five roles. He plays himself. He plays Cain. He plays Josh, which is a 7-year-old child. He plays Margot, who is a nanny that kind of tries to protect all these personalities. And he also plays his father, Dr. Nix Sr. And so we're given the information that Carter's father was basically kind of like a Dr. Frankenstein, but for personality disorder. And it's implied that at some point he probably abducted Carter as a small child and then forced trauma on him repeatedly to cause these personality splits. So everything that's been done to Carter has been done on purpose. And we find the police finally kind of figure out what's going on with Carter after he tries to kill his wife, who was having an affair on him. Cain sees this in the woods, and Cain tells him, "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it," because Cain always takes care of the dirty work. And he tries to kill his wife and set up her lover with the bodies of the women that he's been killing. And this all backfires when his wife escapes the vehicle that he tries to drown her in, and then attacks him once he's turned back to Carter, and Carter has no idea why she's attacking him. Uh, there's some fun stuff in the movie. There's some things about it that are interestingly humorous too. The performance here from Frances Steenhagen as Dr. Lynn Waldheim is also very good. She plays a psychiatrist who formerly worked for Carter's father and transcribed some of his studies, and then through that was able to discover what he had done and testified against him in court years earlier, after which he committed suicide because he didn't want to go to jail. But the police are able to find her and bring her in to try to get a beat on what's going on with John Lithgow's character of Dr. Carter Nix, and she digs into his psyche a little bit, and it seems to be a little bit too far. But we have a great scene here in the interrogation room where John's slipping between characters in his personalities, and it's a very fun scene. And then we're set up for this great ending that John Lithgow's like 6'4", 6'5". The man is actually huge. He doesn't look like it because he has such a great voice, and he comes off very Shakespearean with his delivery and stuff. So people forget that this is a huge man, and so there's a part here where we're kind of distracted by the fact that uh, Carter slips on a dress to try to get away from the police, and it's just funny because, like I said, Lithgow's 6'4", so he walks past several people who don't recognize him and assume that he is just a woman in a trench coat. But I mean, he would have to be like the biggest woman of all time, you know. uh, but the end is very fun. We find out something that we actually don't know after all these different twists and turns, and fun looks at personality disorder. Um, personality disorder is something that was played with a lot around, after the 60s, of course. And it's kind of had an evolution. And Brian De Palma is one of those directors responsible for it. He's dove into this several times in other films. And De Palma hadn't done a thriller in almost 10 years before this one because he kind of had taken a lot of heat for some of his films and how they were too close to what the masters had done before him. Because there's a difference between homage and ripping something off. Okay, in my opinion, if you want to do an homage, you throw in a little Easter egg or you do a scene in a similar way, but you don't do the same scene the same way or the same plot twist the same way, because that's not necessarily an homage in my opinion. That's just when it becomes a French word for stealing, to steal a line myself from Caroline Williams. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I love Raising Cain. It is very diluted and delusional and deceptive. I think it even says some of those words on the poster art. Uh, but it's all in good fun. And apparently, this idea came to De Palma while he was working on something else, and he had the idea of setting a thriller in a playground. And so a lot of the scenes in this movie originate in a playground where all these people meet up, but not all the scenes. And it's just a secondary setting for what's going on. But we get a great performance here from Lithgow, and of course he worked with De Palma before this in a couple films, most notably Blowout, where he was kind of the company man gone crazy in that one. And just a great set of performances here. 5 different performances that he does and nails every single one, of course, because he's John Lithgow. I was talking to Regina about this while I was watching it, and I said it's interesting how there are some guys like that were big time and they played the hero and they were always the lead, like Mel Gibson and stuff like that. And 30 years later, they're barely working and people don't really care that much. But then you have guys like Lithgow who played in a lot of different stuff. Basically kind of a character actor at first, but then becomes through. He plays a lot of bad guys. He was in the Twilight Zone movie, and because that whole generation grows up with him, playing these great parts and not taking on lead roles. 30 years later, we remember him as a great actor. And now, I mean, like if I'm going to cast a movie, I would rather have John Lithgow than a lot of those guys who were major stars. It's funny that I would bring that up because they recently did a movie together, Mel Gibson and John Lithgow, where Daddy's Home 2, where they played the fathers of Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, right? But yeah, I think it's interesting how those guys who played all those character parts and played the bad guy and were always willing to do something that maybe the lead actors weren't willing to do, they are the ones that we remember the most now, and they're the ones that are still working and still getting acclaim, right? So, guys, that's all I have for this week. I love Raising Cain. I'm not 100% sure how good it is. I think this one is kind of like in the eye of the beholder. If you like classic noir films, if you like the classic Hitchcock films and stuff like that, give this one a chance. Now, don't take it too seriously because it is kind of a parody of those, especially in the way it's shot and some of the sequences that don't, make a lot of sense to other people. I think they make sense to people who have seen those older films. And I'm gonna give Raising Cain. I'm gonna give it 7.5 out of 10. I kind of want to go up to 8.5 out of 10 because if I'm looking at it subjectively for me, then just in my view, I love it a little more than I probably should. But in reality, I'd say it's a good 7 to 7.5 out of 10, and it's worth a watch. And like I said, not everybody's going to get it. Some people are going to watch it and they're going to be like, "Oh my God, this guy just, he took the Psycho thing and threw it into overdrive." But then I think it's interesting how it's one of those films that reaches out through both sides. It reaches out through the past, and you see things from films like Vertigo and Psycho and stuff like that in it, but it also reaches out through the future, and then later on we see similar plot like lines like this in other films like Secret Window, and of course Split. I mean, of course, with Split you could argue that uh, that M. Night Shyamalan takes it the next step further, the next step in the evolution of the personality disorder, where someone could have the personality of something like a beast or a monster, and then that thing could become, uh, real because of this personality disorder, because someone believes it to be true so much it becomes real. And yeah, so it definitely has impact. I'll say that, and it is fun if you look at it in the right perspective. I'm not saying it's a comedy. It's not slapstick, slip on banana peels type stuff. But it is parody in the sense that it's so over dramatic, and it's so like the music is used in the car scenes when they're driving. Dun, 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 you know what I mean? It's it's right on line with that, but it is a fun thriller. If you just wanted to watch it like that as a thriller, or as a what's the hell's going on, I wouldn't call it a who done it, but more of a what the hell's going on type thing. Uh, you could do a lot worse than Raising Cain. And guys, that's all we've got for this week. I really enjoyed this one. We'll be back. Our next episode is going to be about the 1990 film Blue Steel with Jamie Lee Curtis, Ron Silver, and Clancy Brown. And guys, we'll talk to you the next time. We got something worth talking about. Bye.